In this movie, we'll take a look at the blueprint of the CAPM exam and give you a better idea of the exam in general. The exam itself contains 150 multiple choice questions. 135 of these are scored questions, and the other 15 are what are called pre-test questions. These pre-test questions are randomly placed throughout the exam, so you don't know which are scored or not scored. They exist to test the validity of potential future questions and evaluate whether they'll be incorporated into future exams. The passing score is 57%, so you must answer 77 of the scored questions correctly in order to pass the exam. When you fill out your application, you'll choose between two methods of taking the exam, either computer-based testing or paper-based testing. The paper-based testing is offered under two special circumstances only. One, you must reside more than 186.5 miles away from the nearest computer-based testing site, or two, your employer administers the exam for a minimum of 10 employees. As of right now, Prometric is where you'll be taking your computer-based exam, and you won't be able to enroll for that exam until your application has been approved by PMI. In regards to length, the exam is 3 hours and 15 minutes, and that extra 15 minutes comes from the tutorial that's offered at the beginning of the computer-based tests. Something to note here is that as you're taking the exam, you have the opportunity to mark questions for review later. So if you're stumped by a question, you can actually flag it and come back to it, assuming that time permits. If you fail the exam, you may retake it up to 2 times within your 1-year eligibility period, which begins once your application has been approved. If you don't pass all 3 times, you must wait 1 year after your 3rd attempt in order to reapply. The CAPM exam is based solely on the Pmbok guide. PMI openly gives you the exam blueprint, letting you know the percentage of questions that come from each chapter. The first 2 chapters cover the project management framework. You'll need to have an understanding of the 5 process groups and also the 9 knowledge areas. If you're taking the computer-based exam, you'll know immediately whether you've passed at the end of the exam. Until recently, PMI would provide you with a percentage scored correctly for each category. Now this has changed. Instead, you will see below proficient, moderately proficient, and proficient. Let's take a look at an example exam question so that you are familiar with the structure. You are presented with the question and 4 possible answers. You'll never see all of the above or none of the above or a 5th potential response. Let's take a look at this example. It says, the following are characteristics of a project except repetitive and ongoing, temporary, have a definite beginning and end, and result in a unique product or result. If you selected repetitive and ongoing, you are correct. We sometimes have a habit of scanning quickly through questions and missing key words, such as except, as we see here. Aside from except, you'll often see words such as best, and sometimes the question will ask you for that next thing to do. Other times, you get really long-winded question explaining complex scenarios. These additional details are excess information that are meant to distract you, so make sure that you focus on the core question. Throughout the course, we'll look at several examples per section. You'll find that practice exams really help you working through small testing errors, such as the example that we just looked at with the word except. I do recommend taking at least 1 full-length practice exam before taking your official exam. To wrap up the CAPM overview, I'll leave you with the exam costs. And before closing, I would like to point out that becoming a PMI member and then registering for the exam is actually at a lower cost than taking the exam as a non-member. And finally, you are able to download the CAPM Credential Handbook directly from PMI's website.